Bookcase and Coffee presents Buzzing About Romance, a quick shot of romance.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Buzzing About Romance. On this episode of A Quick Shot of Romance, I am joined by podcast contributor Lindsey, and we are reviewing Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. This is book one of her Gold Rush Ranch series. Can you read the synopsis from Goodreads for you? Me?
Yeah, I can.
It's been a night.
From Goodreads. I don't like her and she doesn't like me. Billie is my new employee, the horse trainer I need to turn the family racing business around. She's feisty, confident, and so damn tempting. And our chemistry, it sizzles. We clash from the moment we meet, and in a small town or on an even smaller farm, it's hard to keep your distance. It's even harder to keep that friction from turning to fire. But keeping things professional, that might be the biggest struggle of all, because Billie is the whole package, whip smart with a body I fantasize about when I'm alone, and quite possibly the only woman who can save this place and me. She drives me crazy, in every sense of the word, every smart mouth, little comment, every game we play, I end up wanting more, wanting her closer, with me, under me. I try not to let her get to me, but the more time we spend together, the more I crave her. Her lips, her trust, her heart, I want it all. But at what cost? Because suddenly I don't just want to win races, I want to win the girl.
Okay, so Off to the Races is a slow burn, standalone romance with no cheating. It's the first book in the Gold Rush Ranch series, and it's set in a small town called Ruby Creek. And it was released April 23rd, 2021. This is actually Elsie Silver's debut book. And the tropes are enemies to lovers, boss, employee, some aspect of hidden identity. It's a sports romance because it is a horse racing romance, slow burn, small town. And the put out percentage was 67%, which there were a couple moments like earlier in the book where you thought like it was going to pop, but it didn't. It was like a dirty tease.
Yeah, it was a dirty tease. And it really didn't feel slow burn to me because of like how fire their interactions were from the start. Like,
well, and I actually had to go back and look it up because I was like, because when I was like reading through stuff and it said slow burn there, I was like, no, it wasn't. Like they definitely popped like early. But then like once I found the percentage, was like, but that one makeout that they had like in the barn, I was like, hot damn. That's why it didn't feel like a slow burn.
This book was incredible. Like I didn't know what to expect. So Rachel from Reading with Rach, she recommended this book. I'd asked like, what's a new to you author that's a 5-star book for you? And she was like, oh, read this. This is really good. And like, until I read our notes for today's podcast, I had no idea this was her debut novel. This does not read like a debut novel. It like
does not.
Out of the gate, like on fire. Like this is I thought it was really well written, really well done. The characters, the depth, the development.
Like there were a couple places like it was a little wordy, and I thought maybe she could like pull up like some of those like really abstract details that like weren't super necessary, but they worked well with the story. So it didn't take away from the story, and it didn't add so much extra that you're like, oh man, like it just won't stop. Like Rachel has talked about this book like in Elsie Silver like over and over again, like since she started reading her, and I was like, this is a good book to try, and I was pleasantly surprised with it. What I like too, though, is you don't see a lot of the horse racing. Like I think I've only read like 2 or 3 books, or like maybe 10 total, in like the thousands of books that I've read, where like horse racing, horse training is a focus. So I thought that was an interesting like direction to take.
Yeah, I thought that was a unique take as well. There's, I thought she handled the women's struggle in that industry really well as well. Because that's kind of, I think it's a very relatable topic. Like even if horse racing isn't interesting to you, like the story itself, it's definitely in the realm of contemporary romance. And it's also like I am a woman in a male-dominated industry, right. So I really related to a lot of her struggles.
And I was curious today when I was going back and looking at stuff, and I looked it up, and it says 95% of like trainers are male. which is an insane number. Like that's like crazy.
It is very crazy.
Okay, so let's like dive into the book. So let's talk about Vaughn a little bit. So he is dealing with the aftermath of his grandfather's death and like the demise of his reputation because of things that are being said about him. And so he has moved home to Ruby Creek in the farm to try and bring it back to like the glory days, like after things kind of imploded a little bit.
And kind of back to his childhood, because he grew up, you find out in the book that he kind of grew up at Ruby Creek on the ranch with his grandfather, and that like he feels, he stepped outside of his role running a major corporation. His family is a multi-billion-dollar family. They own a huge corporation, and this ranch is kind of like his grandparents' hobby farm almost. Like it was his grandmother's, and he grew up there, so he feels deeply connected to it. So when after his grandfather passes, he's walked away from his life in the spotlight, kind of leading a major corporation, and he is now at the farm and trying to bring it back to his, I guess, like the glory days from when he was a child growing up there.
Well, and that's the thing, like the ranch like truly is like where he felt him the most himself. Like he has this like playboy persona, which isn't exactly like as like he truly is, but he kind of plays up to this like persona like when he is in like the mining world and the mining business, because they like the other company is like a mining company, but you don't really learn too much about them in book one. So it's almost like he has this separate identity as the CEO, but when he comes home to the ranch, like that's where the true Vaughn really lies.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you really like, he's coming into himself. Like he's not only there's so many like metaphors and parallels in the book. Like the ranch, I feel like is a parallel for Vaughn and his character's development. And then, we'll get to Billie, but I feel like the horse and Billie, like they're the parallel. So it's like everything that's happening in the book, it's definitely happening to drive the plot forward, but also kind of mirroring like the things the individual character works through. You don't always see that done a lot. So
where the setting itself like creates like a lot of growth for the characters. Yeah. And so Vaughn is this extremely stubborn, set in his ways, like kind of guy who thinks he has all the answers and all the right answers. And he struggles with the changes that are happening on the ranch and the fact that like Hank has recommended this Billie Black, who Vaughn thinks is a man, coming to train their horses. And so that leads into an interesting meetup when they first see each other. So let's talk about that a little bit. So
that's not meet cute of all time.
It is not a meet cute. It is like, I want to punch you in the face type of like meeting. Because he thinks that Billie is a man who is coming because Hank has not said like specifically like this woman trainer. Like he talks about a trainer and how they are young, and he uses like very like non like specific pronouns anytime that they had talked about it. And so Vaughn is convinced that like this young boy basically is going to come work with his horses. And so when Billie like shows up at the ranch, like she gets out of her car and she is beautiful, he sticks his foot in his mouth and then some.
Yeah, he thinks that she is one of the many female suitors after him and his status, and that they have he thinks that essentially because he's not in Victoria, they have found out where he is, and now they're showing up at his ranch, and he thinks that
and he thinks his mom like sent her.
Yeah.
And so he like says such mean and crude like things to her, and so she kind of puts him in his place. Like she does not accept that, which I thought was wonderful.
Yeah, I loved that first interaction.
Mhm.
It really sets the bar. Like it shows her character, like how much of a spitfire she is, how determined she is. And then I love like the job was conditional, that they like kind of started off with a bet. And the bet is
Mhm.
obviously the horse.
Yes.
Um, and it was just like really interesting to me, like how they frame this whole story. And then you just start rooting for Billie from the beginning.
Mhm.
Like that interaction in particular, you're just like, oh, he's gonna eat it. He's
Yeah.
gonna regret this.
Well, and it kind of sets the stage for the fact that like she is coming into this situation where she wants this opportunity. Like she is coming back to the area, like she has been gone, like her family is embroiled in scandal. So she has separated herself from all of that. And so she has really been trying to like make a name for herself as Billie Black, as this well done, well capable, like forceful woman who can do this. And she is strong and she is determined and she is fairly stubborn in her own right. But it doesn't come off as like obnoxiously stubborn. It's stubborn in the sense where like she really sticks to her decisions and like digs her feet in because she truly knows what is the best decision for this horse that she is basically forced to train.
Yeah, it's definitely a place of confidence and strength. Like
Mhm.
not just stubborn for the sake of being stubborn. Like I guess an
Mhm.
arrogant take on stubborn. I think Vaughn's stubborn is a little bit more arrogant.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Whereas,
Like
Billie's
she
is
like her
strong female.
stubbornness is like it's coming from the right place and his stubbornness is just not always the best thing. But so she has a way with this horse. So like part of her interview um is to pick the horse that she thinks would be the best on paper to train. And this is, I mean, I don't know a lot about horses. Like I have ridden them and I like they're very pretty, but like I don't know anything about them. But so she's looking at these like reports basically, and like he wants her to pick the best one on paper. And so she does, like, but it is a horse that like it has a lot of problems. And so she has to coax this horse and she has a way with this horse. And like she truly falls in love with this horse in like the area. And I thought that whole story arc with the way in which she trains this horse and treats this horse, like it was really profound.
Yeah, I love that element of the story. They're bonding. I loved how like she knew from the get-go something was wrong with this horse. Like she knew,
Mhm.
she was like, I picked this one, but like on paper, something's wrong with him. What's wrong with him? And they
Well,
didn't
that's the
tell
thing.
him
Like she
until
kept
afterwards. They were like,
asking, like,
figure it
what?
out.
Yeah.
So she kind of like walks in blind to the situation, and the horse, like, he's basically wild. Like nobody can go near him. And
Mhm.
she spends a great deal of the book like forging a bond with him. And then like the horse is an integral character
Mm.
to the story, because
Yes,
like her
so
way with
much so.
him also really like builds a great deal of respect with her amongst the whole stable as a whole, because the ranch is more than obviously just like the main characters. And they talk about like how frequently comes up like how respected she is at the ranch because of her approach
Mhm.
with everyone and how she handles everyone. And the horse, she goes out to the horse like every morning and just like starts socializing with him. And
Mhm.
then like it becomes kind of a social
Like
point for her and Vaughn, because Vaughn starts coming out every morning with her, and then they just mess with each other.
they
Like
do. They really do. Like it says it's enemies to lovers, but it's really not. They're more like adversaries because he doesn't make the best first impression. So she has this idea of him from what she knows of him in the news and like how they met. And so like she just doesn't really want anything to do with him. Like she's there to work, she's there to do her job, and he needles because he's really attracted to her, but he doesn't want to be. So there is some push and pull, but it's natural and it works. And it's not forced where like they come together, they like are apart, like, and back and forth. Like I felt like the back and forth and the push and pull, like it worked really well and it made sense.
It did. They were building a friendship and it was a lot for both of them.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, Vaughn doesn't have the greatest relationships with his family. He
Right.
doesn't really have, like, Billie becomes kind of his first friend, if
Mhm.
you will. Like he
Like
doesn't
true
really
friend,
have
yeah.
a true friend or a true confidant. So like it's almost like Billie's relationship to the horse, kind of the same with Vaughn.
Mhm. Well, they kind
Um,
of progress at the same thing, like at the same pace almost. Like Billie like creates this bond with the horse. And like as the horse begins to trust her, like her relationship with Bond like also like starts to grow and adapt. But then something big happens and we're not going to tell you what. And like her heartbreak in that moment, like it was palpable. Like I felt like my heart was breaking for her when that entire situation happened. And I wanted to cry.
yeah, it was very powerful. It was a very powerfully written book. I like
Mm-hmm.
when I read the notes, I just can't get over that this was a debut novel, because when I read the notes, I was like, there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought like she was wildly talented with how much emotion she packed into that, because you
Yeah.
felt it. Like you were mad. You
Mm-hmm.
could just really sympathize with Billie's
You were
situation.
angry. You were angry for her. You were angry at him. Like you felt bad for him because of the situation that he feels like he needs to take these steps, but at the same time he wanted to like punch him. But then he gets some hard truths and like some perspectives that he was unwilling to even acknowledge like before all of this happened. And he really like sees what's truly important. And I think that was a very strong point in the story also.
My favorite scene, I don't know if this is too much of a spoiler, so I'm just gonna let you know this is a little bit of a spoiler.
Well,
My favorite
spoiler.
scene is when Billie, um, you know, trusts Cole with the decision on who's gonna be the jockey for the first race, and then
Yes.
after the race,
And
Dee
she does what she does.
Dee wins, the horse wins, and she flips out
Mhm.
because like there was just blatant disrespect for her and her job. And the best scene in this whole book is when she goes and whips someone on the butt in a
Mhm.
room full of very wealthy people, very
Well, very
influential people,
important like
and she
to
just loses
do.
her mind. And it's fantastic because
Mhm.
like I was like, oh my gosh, what did you do? Are you going to get fired? Like, what's going to happen to you? And then I
Mhm.
just loved how that played out, because like it was her job to make that call. The call was taken away from her. And I just really liked how like that situation, the aftermath of that situation, it was like
Mhm.
really a testament to like how good she was at her job. And I wish those kinds of situations paid out
Well,
more
and
like that in real
also
life.
Well, and also too, like what happened after that race, like that whole portion of the book, like in her reaction and how she dealt with what was happening, and the fact that Vaughn was like, she truly has a connection with this horse. Like, we made a mistake. And I thought that was like
And
really
then he goes
profound.
on from that to do the stupidest stuff. Oh my
He,
gosh. You really get to the point where you wish that scene had happened to him when the
you
drama
do.
goes down.
But
Why is she not beating him with the whip?
But there's a moment like after everything happens, like it was like a couple days later or something like that, where she goes to talk to him and tells him some truths. And and he still like he listens and he hears, but he still doesn't get it. And it was frustrating because it's like you're like a mature guy. Like they're in their late 20s, but they were mature. Like they were not like these frivolous like kids, but he listened and he heard, but he still was like, I need to do this because of the situation surrounding me. And it was like, but you don't have to do what you did. Like, it's like, just stop. Okay. So before we talk anymore and spoil anything, just read this book. It is that good. So, Lindsey, did you like this book?
Yes. I've already downloaded book 2.
Well, I actually downloaded book 2 also because there's a moment in book 1 that like you really need to read book 2. And I was like, so I read like a couple chapters, but then I was like, crap, I have like 3 other books I need to read. Like, so I had to stop and I was very frustrated, but I really like this book as well. So who would typically like this book?
I really think like fans of Melanie Harlow, Claire Kingsley, Jenna Hart, Molly McLean, like they're more, I would say like there's elements of humor in them, but overall they're a more serious contemporary romance. I would not classify them as rom-com, but they're like the structure and the way that you read the story and the way that it flows, it's very solid. It's like reliably good. And I think like a lot of the fans of those particular authors would love.
Well, and those are all authors that are good. They have angst, but it's not like overtly like angsty. Like they have the perfect balance between angst and comedy and serious, and like they have that perfect blend of everything. But yeah, and fans of a contemporary romance, if you like a sports romance but don't like the typical sports romance, then this works really well. So would you recommend this book?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I still can't get over this is her debut novel. For a debut novel, it is just outstanding.
It is an excellent debut novel, and I'm really excited to dig into the rest of the series, especially book 3, who is kind of a bad guy. So I'm curious to know like how she makes him okay.
We'll have to buddy read all this.
We shall. Okay. So do you have a book you think we should review for a quick shot of romance? If you do, send us an email at thebees@bookcaseandcoffee.com. And Lindsey, I realized I never said thank you or like welcome to the podcast because I just skipped right over that tonight because apparently my intro was on brand and very awkward. But
we were
thank
excited.
you so much. I was excited, but thank you so much for joining me for this quick shot of romance.
Anytime. Thanks.
All right. Until next time, happy reading, everybody.
Find us on Instagram at Buzzing About Romance or on Twitter at Buzzing Romance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.